Most studio owners build their class schedule the same way a lot of restaurants build a menu. A little bit of strength, a little bit of cardio, something mindful, something sweaty, something for beginners, something intense, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, something for everyone. And on the surface, it makes sense. You want to appeal to more people. You want to offer variety. You want members to have options. But when you really zoom out, it's one of the fastest ways to dilute your brand, commoditize your business, and confuse the very people you're trying to serve. And I know that sounds dramatic, but stay with me because once you see this, you can't unsee it. In this video, I want to show you a completely different way to think about your class schedule. What's on it, why it's there, and what it's actually doing for your business. Because your schedule is not just a list of workouts. It's the delivery system of your brand promise. I'm Barry, co-founder of Fitcarma, where we help fitness studio owners build a brand that moves people, and a brand people choose beyond the workout. My wife Shay and I have helped build some of the most iconic fitness brands around the world. Me on the brand strategy side, her on the experience design side, helping studios clarify their brand architecture and bring it to life through the experiences they create. Because the brands people stay loyal to don't just offer classes, they architect journeys for their clients to experience real transformation. Here's what I see all the time. Studio owners build their schedule reactively instead of strategically. Classes get added because we should probably offer strength. We need something cardio-based. Members asked for this. We hired an instructor who teaches that. Our competitors offer it too. And again, none of this is intentional. It makes sense on the surface. It feels logical. You're trying to be well-rounded. You're trying to be accommodating. You're trying to grow. But what happens over time is your schedule becomes a collection of modalities instead of a cohesive experience. And when that happens, three things start to erode: your identity, your differentiation, and your members' understanding of why your studio matters. Because when your classes are positioned as options, members start shopping instead of committing. They think, what do I feel like today? Who's teaching? What sounds fun? Instead of, what do I need right now? What supports my growth? What moves me forward? You've unintentionally trained them to see your studio like a buffet instead of a transformation pathway. And this is where something else starts to happen. You begin getting requests for more and more customization. Can you make this class harder? Can you make this one more recovery-based? Can you add this format? Can we tweak that programming? And at first, it feels like good customer service. You want to listen, you want to accommodate, you want people to feel heard, but over time, you find yourself customizing and iterating so much that you've lost all sense of who you are. Your schedule becomes reactive instead of intentional. Your identity becomes flexible instead of defined. And what started as an effort to serve everyone ends up eroding the very brand people were meant to commit to in the first place. Your schedule is signaling something whether you realize it or not. When it looks like a menu, it signals generalist energy, variety for variety's sake, no clear transformation pathway. But when it's architected strategically, it signals expertise, intentionality, leadership. It tells members, we know what you need, even when you don't. And that's where the shift begins. The most powerful reframe I can give you is this. Stop thinking about your class schedule like a menu. Start thinking about it like a prescription. If you went to a doctor with an ailment and they handed you a list of options and said, do whatever you want, you'd question their expertise immediately, and you'd probably do the cheapest or the fastest. If they gave you prescriptions but couldn't explain what each one was for, you'd lose trust even faster. What you expect instead is clarity. This is for pain, this is for inflammation, this is to help you sleep. You trust the journey because the expert designed it. Your class schedule should function the same way. Because when you've done deep brand work, you understand two things clearly: what your dream clients are struggling with and who they aspire to become. Your classes are not random workouts. They are interventions, vehicles experiential bridges between pain point and identity. So the question becomes, what does your dream client need in order to move from where they are now to how they want to experience their life? That answer determines what belongs on your schedule. Not trends, not requests, not convenience, strategy. This is where most studios get stuck. They can tell me what they offer, but not why. They'll say, we offer reformer Pilates. Great. Why reformer Pilates instead of yoga, instead of strength training, instead of cycling? And when we dig deeper, the answers get really powerful. For example, reformer Pilates requires inward focus. It builds mind-body awareness. It helps facilitate getting into a flow state. It helps people process what's happening internally, physically, and emotionally. So if your brand promise is helping people feel restored instead of depleted, now the modality supports that transformation. It's not just a workout, it's a vehicle. When you get this right, it changes how your instructors show up too. You're no longer asking them to teach a good class. You're asking them to deliver a specific outcome, a feeling, an emotional shift. They'll understand why the class exists, what members should feel, what role they play in that journey. So buy-in increases, consistency increases, pride increases, because they're not just instructors anymore. They're facilitators of a transformation. And members feel this immediately too. They stop favoriting one class format. They stop only attending their favorite instructor's class. They start recognizing how each class meets a different need. Different days, different moods, different life moments. Participation spreads across the schedule. Retention rises because they're not just consuming workouts, they're following a pathway. Now, here's where this work gets uncomfortable, but also incredibly empowering, because when you start looking at your class schedule through this lens, you begin to notice things you didn't see before. You notice classes that were added reactively, not strategically. Classes that exist because an instructor wanted to teach them, not because they play a defined role in the member journey. You start seeing redundancy. Multiple classes solving the same problem in nearly identical ways with no clear distinction between them. And sometimes you discover classes that, when you zoom out, don't support your brand at all. Classes that you don't even like. Classes that feel like a major inconvenience to run as a business with no significant return on your investment of time, energy, or resources. And that realization can feel confronting at first, because removing classes feels like reducing value. It feels like offering less, but the opposite is actually true. Because the most iconic brands in the world aren't built on abundance, they're built on precision. Think about the difference between a restaurant with a 14-page menu and one with a carefully curated tasting experience. One tries to satisfy everyone, the other is designed to move you. When Shay and I work with studios, we're not helping them throw more onto the schedule. We're helping them refine what deserves to be there, because distinction isn't created through volume. It's created through intention. You're not trying to become the studio that offers everything. You're becoming the studio that offers what matters most. And when you make decisions from that place, something shifts. Your schedule tightens. Your story clarifies, your team aligns, and your brand starts to feel less like a collection of workouts and more like a crafted experience that people can trust. Here's another way to think about this, because what you're really doing when you build or refine your class schedule is architectural work. If you think about building a house, if you decide to add on a new room or extend a balcony or build a second story, you don't just slap it onto the structure and hope for the best. You have to consider, how does this affect the foundation? How does the weight distribute? How does it connect to what already exists? Because if you add on to structure without thinking about how it integrates, you don't just create clutter, you risk compromising the integrity of the entire build. And class schedules are no different. Every time you add a new format, a new modality, a new offering, you're making an architectural decision about your brand experience. Does this strengthen the structure, or does it add weight without purpose? Does it connect to the journey you're taking people on, or does it just sit awkwardly outside of it? Because over time, studios that keep adding without architectural intention don't end up more valuable. They end up heavier, harder to understand, harder to articulate, harder to stay loyal to. But when your structure is clear, When every class has a defined role, when every addition strengthens the foundation, everything gets easier. Your messaging simplifies, your instructors align, your members understand the journey that they're on, and your brand feels cohesive, not crowded. And if you're watching this and starting to think about your schedule differently, you might also be starting to realize something most studio owners don't realize until they're deep into this work. It can be really hard to read the label from inside the bottle. When you're inside your own business, inside your own method, inside what comes naturally to you, it's difficult to see what's actually special about it. It's difficult to articulate why your classes exist, why your modalities matter, why your experience feels different when someone walks into your room. Not because those things aren't there, but because they've become second nature to you. Your instincts feel obvious, your decisions feel normal, your structure feels standard. But to the outside world, those are the very things that make you unique. And without outside perspective, without brand strategy, without stepping back and looking at the full picture, it's almost impossible to see the prescription you've built, even when you're the one who's designed it. Because taking a class was never the end of the story. It was never meant to be, I wanted a workout, so I took a workout, story over. That's not what keeps people coming back. People come back because something deeper is happening. They feel more connected to themselves, more confident in their bodies, more capable in their lives. They start feeling strong again, clear-headed again, alive again. Your classes are not isolated workouts. They're chapters in a larger journey, a journey from stress to presence, from burnout to vitality, from self-doubt to self-trust. And when your schedule's aligned to that journey, members don't just attend your classes, they follow a pathway of who they are becoming. So go look at your class schedule and ask yourself honestly, do I know why every class is there? What role it plays? What outcome it's designed to deliver, what identity it supports. Because when you stop offering workouts and start designing prescriptions, and when every class becomes intentional, when every modality supports that transformation, and when every instructor understands the journey, you're no longer just running a fitness business. Now you're building a brand that moves people. And if this conversation has had you looking at your schedule differently, and if you're realizing there might be more intention inside what you've built than what you've ever been able to articulate, and if you want help seeing it more clearly, that's exactly the work we do at Fitcarma. We help studio owners step outside the bottle so they can finally read the label. We look at your brand, your class offering, your modalities, your positioning, and help you uncover the deeper strategy behind what you've created. Not to change who you are, but to clarify it, to align it, to make sure every class you offer is reinforcing the journey you want members to be on. So if you'd like support applying this lens to your own studio, we're opening a handful of case study spots right now. You can apply for a free fit call with us by following the link below. And if this way of thinking resonates with you, if you're the kind of studio owner who cares about building something deeper than workouts, who wants to create experiences people stay loyal to, who wants to stand for something more than just fitness, then make sure you subscribe, because this is the kind of conversation we're having on this channel. How to turn your fitness business into a brand people choose, and a brand that moves people beyond the workout.